but he wasn't going to be back until probably closer to 10. And then Captain Tradesman here had a pipe burst at the hospital. So the city of Chicago is underwater. So he's going to go to work at like 3 a.m.
Rough.
What? That's true. Isn't it? You're going to save the world?
Underwater.
It is. I mean, that's how I took it. You're my tradesman superhero. I wouldn't know what to do. When I look at a box of tools, I just thank God for you because I have no idea what I'm looking at. I can always take pictures. You're like my Google of tools.
That's right. Did you ever get that basin wrench?
Don't know what that is.
You asked what it was when you were at my house.
I know what a petcock is.
What is that? To help me understand.
What the heck?
What is that?
Google went off on my phone. Okay.
That's how you figure everything out. You're like, what the fuck is he talking
There's
about?
nothing that I can't do if I don't utilize the power of the internet. JP, you would agree with me, right? There's not a whole lot that we can't learn how to do.
I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
The age of the internet is crazy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can learn out there.
Solving problems a lot of times is just a YouTube video away. And I'm not saying that it's going to pass a home inspection when I go to sell my house, but with 7 years left on my mortgage before I get this bad boy paid off, and with the cost of living, I don't plan on moving anywhere. So it's okay that I didn't lay that 14 gauge electrical wire in the attic like I should have.
Nothing to code at Bosie's house.
Not at all. Except for the plumbing.
Except for the plumbing. So I did some renovations at my house. All the receptacles got changed out, and I got a smoking deal on some tamper resistant outlets, and then realized that they're actually the 20 amp, and all my breakers are 15, and I'm sure that the Romex is not uprated for those either, so I probably have to change those all out when it comes time to sell too.
Oh, I would change them out before that for you have a fire.
Well, I mean, I have nothing, I don't know that I've ever seen a household device that has that style of plug on it. It's the one where it's got like the half T to it on the left hand prong.
So, but you're saying that what's 20 amp? The breaker for that switch?
No, the breakers are 15s. It's just that the receptacle would take a 20 amp
got you. Okay, yeah.
If you plugged it in there, which would obviously, if it was pulling 20 amps, the breaker should trip. But it's not the code, It's like,
yeah.
But I don't know.
Talking about your breakers were 20 and your 15 amp outlets. I was like,
no, other way around. Okay. Yeah, still not code though. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to change those all out now. So,
it's like current though. Like I would think that they'd be okay. Is that not how they do building?
It's not okay. It's not the code. Yeah, because if the breaker didn't trip, like there was something wrong with the breaker too, and it was able to draw, 20 amps, then you might be melting your lines in the wall, or something bad happens there. Yeah, I looked it up. I was like, oh, that was an oversight, but as something I learned on the internet, like you were saying before, and it was after the fact, unfortunately. So, it's kind of crazy how the algorithm works where, you start deep diving into anything, whether it's pyro or DIY renovations, and then you start getting that stream of information, thrown at you, and, you kind of learn more as you're going through it. And hindsight's always 20/20 though.
Exactly. So. Exactly. It's amazing how much of a subject matter expert you feel like when you're done doing it, but then you realize later on when somebody who actually knows how to do it takes a look at it and they're like, well, maybe not so much, but you did give it your best.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how I am with wood. My first carpenter buddy came over and I was so proud of my trim work in my townhome that we had. He looked at me, he's like, who did all your baseboard? I was like, I did. Had a big smile on my face. He's like, oh, okay. instantly. I already knew what that meant.
Okay. Did you at least kerf everything?
I actually cheated. I went the block method where it took the blocks in the corner.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I went the easier route, and it still didn't turn out the best because, like, you know, they have a way of hiding the trim nails and all that stuff so that you can't really see them when you.
Oh yeah, you got to putty it. Yeah.
Not even putty. No, my buddy will do it right at like a seam or a hump.
Oh, okay.
And it'll just inject in there, and then you can't see it from up above. You'd have to be like laying on the ground and looking at it from an angle.
Yeah, so he'll get it into like where the router or the planer or whatever hits the trim for the ornate part of it. Yeah,
exactly. Tell trim carpenters do it professionally. Just like when he did my crown molding in that house too, and when we got done, I only had to caulk a few of his pinholes. The rest of it I couldn't even see.
I'm currently 2 years into redoing all the trim, doors, cabinet faces, everything, because the house I moved into, everything was golden oak, and I detest golden oak. So let's just see how long it would take to redo everything. And
how many years? You say?
2 years in. I mean, I just pick away at it, you know. A couple hours on a Saturday. And
you're on my dad's renovation plans.
Yeah.
Are you married?
That's how he does stuff.
No, but
okay, that's why it's taking that long then.
Yeah. I mean, not that the other half doesn't complain about it, because it's, you know, it's not just trim work though. I mean, the whole thing got ripped apart. The whole house did. Everything. There isn't anything that didn't get touched.
Yeah, that's tough to rebuild all that stuff. When you did tear the whole thing up, you just decide to like completely rewire the whole house, start from scratch.
Yep. All new fixtures. So, you know, like, all of the like bathtubs and toilets and sinks and faucets and, you know, everything was just old and needed to be replaced. So it just went after all of it, paint, and then, you know, put up a ceiling in the lower level because I was, exposed. So that required moving ductwork and black iron. And it was like,
did you run land cabling in the wall?
Absolutely.
My man.
Yeah. I actually put a 5.4.2 Dolby Atmos in the lower level.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So that was the one thing I always wanted. That was the one part of the house that was a me thing. You know, throw a TV up on the wall, all in-wall speakers and ceiling.
Nice, dude. Yeah. That's cool. Hey, what do you think of power line networking?
I don't really know much about it. I think I experimented with it way back when it was pretty new. It's got to be 15 plus years now, and it was garbage at that point. I mean, didn't work to the point where, you know, like maybe you got like a 10 meg connection. It might be.
That's bad.
I've heard it's a lot better nowadays.
I think I've got like the I think they're TP-Link units that I got, but I got them to run Ethernet to the TV.
Oh, okay.
My house is old. It was built in the 50s, and you know, I'm not going to fish LAN cabling up into the attic and then go to the switch and then do all that. So I took a chance on it because, like you said, I used to have that shit a long time ago, and it was terrible. The units would always stop working, but I bought some new ones, and I'm getting like 300 megs at each of the units, 300 down. And I mean, I've got fiber coming into the house, but 300 down at each one of the Powerline network boxes. And then, I don't know, call it 160 up, which I was pretty impressed with. But to me, it's kind of black magic. I'm like, dude, how do you not get a bunch of noise on the line?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know much about it. I assume it's just operating on a frequency that's outside of what the electrical current operates at. But if you're getting 300, that's plenty for pretty much any device.
If you're streaming and shit at the TVs, it's more than enough. But I was pretty impressed with that. Hey, I got one more tech support question here for you. I figured when in Rome, I might as well knock this out since you're the guy. What would cause a Chromium-based browser to have capped upload and download performance versus Edge?
Ooh, Okay.
I've tried to disable every single extension in the browsers. And I even installed, God, I think I went to Opera's Chromium based too, isn't it?
Well, so is Edge.
Is it really? I don't think Edge is Chromium based.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're kidding me.
Yeah, the engine was co-developed. So both browsers use that engine, and then
I did not know that. I thought they
tweaked them.
Yeah. Okay. That's crazy. I thought Chrome and Brave and Opera were all Chromium based, which on every single one of those browsers, I get capped out at 160 up and maybe 500 down. And I've got Cat 6 all the way to this terminal. I've got a 2.5 gigabit card in the unit. I've got like everything coming from that Nokia gateway that AT&T gives you. I can't remember exactly what model it is, but going out to the router, like everything's coming out of the 5 gigabit ports to the 2 gigabit port to my 2 gigabit switch. So like everything in between should be able to accommodate the data stream. And I've confirmed that that's what I'm getting into the computer. But every time I go to Edge, I run a speed test and I get like 800 megs down. I'm verging on 900 megs down and then like 750 up. But then the other browsers that are Chromium based, they all cap out at 400 or 500 down and then 160 up. It's got me scratching my head. I cannot figure it out for the life of me.
Interesting. What's your system resources looking like when you're running that speed test?
I think I did one of them in safe mode with networking, so I had absolutely nothing running in the background, and it still did the same thing. But what's crazy is I take the same Cat 6 cable out, plug it into my laptop, and then run a speed test, and it just flies. But it's in Chrome. So, like, I don't know what it is, dude. I'm this close to kind of nuking this computer. You don't think there's something in the PCIe bus that would do that, do you?
I've seen all kinds of weird stuff. Have you tried Firefox just to see?
I've not. It's the only browser I haven't tried yet.
Because that's the only non-Chromium based browser that I know of out there that's mainstream. So I'd try it in there just to at least get your litmus tests out of the way, and then at least I would probably just burn your Chrome to the ground and start over. Which just
perfect, because that's like my entire life for the last 10 years.
That's
is
a
in
tough
Chrome.
thing to do because, you got all that like cache data and goofiness that goes on when you are spanning the 100 revisions that they've done to that application over the last 15 years. So, it could be anything in there. So, I would at least get your litmus out of the way, and then that should tell you, it's probably something you got to look at in Chrome. Nuke it.
Yeah, that's what ChatGPT said too. Yeah. When I got through, 2 days worth of a back and forth with the AI was well, maybe you should just use Edge.
Sponsored by Microsoft.
Welcome to the Rhythm Pyro Podcast, where Posey, AJ, and Jamie ignite your passion for pyromusical show design while testing the very limits of your capacity for stupid.
Welcome to the Rhythm Pyro Podcast. I'm Bo. My computer doesn't work. That's AJ. His does.
Hola.
And there is no Jamie. There is only Zool. And we're hobbyists and semi-professional pyro show designers. And the podcast is a place where we can get together, talk shop, fireworks, art, share tips, tricks, news, and insights with you. Design insights. Our trek to COBRA-CON continues this week as we're hanging out with multi-year PGI Class C competition designer and 2025 COBRA-CON Class C competition designer, JP Hanson. What's up, mister?
How much?
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
I got to ask, did you wind up doing the show from the inside of the truck?
I did not. I made it home.
Okay.
I thought we were going to be in the mobile office tonight. I was like, this is going to be rough. But, because it's currently negative 20 outside. So
dude, it's so damn cold. Before we started doing this tonight, I went to get some food, and I've never been good at bundling up when I go outside during the winter. It's probably why I wound up hating the winter so much. But I just went to the Wendy's to get a sandwich. And then just from the point in which I went in, ate my dinner, came back, got in a car and drove home. I mean, I couldn't even feel my hands. I didn't have gloves on or anything, but -20 just sounds terrible. I think it's like 2 degrees here.
Yeah, it's cold. And then I was trying to think my way around. I got my truck. I'd have to keep it running, and it's newer, so it shuts off after like 15 minutes of running. So I was like, I'm gonna have to contend with that and the beeping in the background as it's doing that. So in the back of my head, I'm like, man, you know what? I could probably, if I shift it into reverse and just, like inch back a little bit, it'll keep it from shutting off because then it sensed that I moved a little bit, and then we'll get another reset on the clock.
I was looking forward to the audio engineering challenge of that, which, believe it or not, it's not really. Twice.
That totally makes sense. I get it. Yeah.
It's nuts. It's awesome how good audio sounds that's recorded in a vehicle, and it's because of like all of the angles inside the acoustic environment. It deadens sound big time. One of the best voiceovers that I ever did for a pyro show, and it actually wasn't my voice, but it was the voice of everybody in my club. If you go all the way back to like NFA in 2015, I think was or 2014, whatever year we did the competition there, every single voiceover for anyone that's not me, because I recorded mine back at the studio, but every single voiceover of a club member was recorded in the front seat of my Tacoma at a club shoot. And that audio has never been more pristine. It was so easy to work with because there's no reflections at all. It's crazy how dead and perfect the audio sounds when you're recording in a car.
Sure. I mean, you got all the materials in there that are sound dampening, and you got the seats and everything. That makes a lot of sense.
It's beautiful, dude. Anytime I do, test mixes and stuff on music, that's the first thing you do. It's the car test. You go out to the car and you listen to it. And if I could mix audio in a car, I would absolutely do it in a heartbeat. So how long have you been doing pyro?
I think it kind of took off for me like 2018, 2019. I've always had an interest, pretty similar story to most people, family always went out and bought some stuff from the local stand, took it to the, cabin or wherever you were celebrating the 4th, and did your fountains and whatever. So that lay dormant for quite a while. And then I went to a city show. I always liked going to the city shows, and the city show that I went to probably the year prior, so like 2017, was just abysmal. It was a snooze fest. And, I left there, getting up, packing up my blanket or my lawn chair or whatever, just thinking in the back of my head, I can do better than that. No idea how I was going to accountch that. None at all. But, I was like, that is just awful.
Was it just your standard municipality shell show?
It's a shell show, and it's, I don't know even which company. I know all the company names now in the area, but I don't even know which company shot it back then. And it's just like, I was not going to sit through another one of those. And started doing the deep dive, and like we were talking about earlier, just fishing out information on the internet. Like what's what? Where do you get like better fireworks? And there's this license thing involved, and so start at the level of retail purchasing, and work your way up through wholesale. And there's a wholesale place that's about 2 hours north of me that they're pretty decent. They bring in a lot of the Brothers and Raccoons. I think they're owned by Winco now, but back then they were just kind of a smaller independent, and started out with that. And setting up shows. And one year we did, I think my brother-in-law, he just moved into a new house, and he was in a subdivision that was still going up. So he had a vacant lot across the road from him. You know, we didn't pull any permits or anything like that. Just because at the time we had no idea, you know, just, everybody does fireworks.
Yeah.
You know, there's no idea what the laws are, or the regulations, or any of that kind of stuff. Just doing it for fun. And, you know, so throwing cakes out there and hand lighting it. Next year we're doing the Chinese system, and that it was an interesting endeavor, you know, just diving into, you know, all the different facets of pyro and setting up a show.
Well, I mean, with you being a tech guy, I'm sure that realization, did that come pretty quick, that you're like, you know, okay, we're doing all this by hand, but maybe there's a cooler way to discharge fireworks?
Yeah, you know, and it started with that Chinese system, you know, knowing like, oh, hey, I can, like everybody's got that mentality, oh, I can sit back and actually watch it instead of, you know, being underneath it. Yeah, heck yeah, let's do that. You know, getting all your AA batteries out. And it didn't really fully understand that, you know, I could meld together, you know, what I do professionally, you know, working on tech and computers and all that kind of stuff, and use that in the pyro. And then there's software that goes along with that. That's, I think, when where everything latched on. Once I figured out, you know, there's computer controlled systems that you can program. And that was the probably the light bulb that went off. And now we're, instead of, you know, having a couple of totes worth of cakes and whatever, you know, and your novelties and stuff, now we got pallets, and you know, we're looking at single shots, and, you know, still trying to do it as cheaply as possible, you know, not buying all the adjustable racks and whatnot. But, you know, that was the path that I ended up going down there. And, you know,
but then that stuff makes sense too, commercially, I guess. And it sounds like you guys were kind of doing some of that, or at least were inspired by the commercial guys that did it to try to do something better. Did it ever morph into a commercial venture for you?
Yeah. It's, I just do like 1 or 2 paid shows a year, and that's it. Yeah. I don't, there was a time where, you know, I thought, oh man, this could be, you know, an augment to my actual career. And, you know, I could take a couple months off and do pyro during the nice weather months. And then you have that kind of unhappy realization that there might not be a lot of money in this. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, making that statement, which I think is true. And that's that it can kind of ruin the passion for you once you commercialize it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I didn't want to let it get to that point. You know, I used to be like a PC gamer, and I loved working on my computer. I hate it. When I go home, I want to shut all my screens. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. You know, it's like, so it can kind of get to you.
Yeah. It's really easy to get oversaturated.
It is. With it. Yeah, especially when you're, you know, just living it day in and day out. So I wanted to keep it as more of a hobby. And, you know, that's where I think the pyro musical option was attractive to me, because you can get in front of that larger audience that, you know, I'm not going to get that big of an audience in my backyard. It's just physically not possible.
Yeah,
but, you know, and I can be more creative with it. I get more space. You know, I don't have to pull permits. I can just focus on what I like doing. And that's, you know, making the show the best way I can, and, you know, using product creatively.
Yeah. Well, it's a solid outlet for expression, just the pyro musical side of it. You know, everything from the music selection through to creating your site pictures, it winds up being a solid representation of you out on the field, which kind of leads me to my next question. I mean, like what you guys were doing in your backyard, when did you find the PGI, and, you know, when did you get involved in that? And then, you know, how long was it before you were like, oh, wow, these guys have competitions here. Let me throw my name in the hat.
My first PGI was PGI Oshkosh, since it's right, near where I'm at. And that was the first year I competed. I don't know what I was expecting out of it as far as like, oh, we're going to go to PGI and compete all in the same year, for the very first time.
That's really cool, dude. We were kind of talking with Mike last week about that because, he showed no fear either when it came to getting involved. Like there's a competition. Cool. Let's do this. So your first PGI, you were all in.
All in. Yep. And I'm in the club here in the States, and the club also did a show at the Oshkosh PGI. That was the 23 PGI. So I was kind of just riding on those coattails a little bit too, in a way of, I'm just going to, do what the rest of the club's doing. And, they're entering their hand-built shells and, they're competing in rockets. And I'm going to go for competing in show because we have no other representation from the club in that competition, and I probably should have went for small or large, just to get my feet wet. But it's like, why? Let's just go unlimited,
Yeah.
Well, and you didn't restrict yourself either. That's the awesome part about it.
If you go back to making that decision on which one you wanted to participate in, was that the mindset? Did you choose the unlimited because you felt like there wasn't a restriction? Because that does, at least to me, I think that always provides a little more of a challenge, and not that diminishes at all, selecting one or the other, but like the PGI small, that's extremely challenging to me. Mm-hmm. I look at that and I'm like, geez, dude, I don't know how it's very, very tough to try to find ways to be creative. But if you look at the unlimited, it's different. You almost feel like the bed sheet comes off and it's a lot less restrictive.
I definitely didn't want to do small. Everything's a single station, 40-foot perimeter, and you could not use any Pro Line, which, my inventory on hand has always been heavy in the Pro Line stuff. I'm like, wow, man, I could make it work with consumer, but it was just not what I wanted as a creative outlet, especially for what I already had selected going into it for my music tracks. There was just no way I was going to be able to do, any of the song choices justice with going in small. And then, large, you're limited to 3 stations. You can use the Pro Line, but it just, 3 stations was tough. And I wanted to be able to like really stretch my legs and, kind of see, well, what's this going to be like? What are these unrestricted competitions going to look like on paper for me? It's something I'm interested in. The best way to get the experience is just to do it and, make adjustments on the fly and in retrospect and, do it again.
Yeah. The more you expose yourself to stuff, the better you get. How many competitions have you been a part of?
Just the 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done anything with is it the Wisconsin Guild that you're a part of?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you done anything with the Wisconsin Guild in terms of additional competitions? I don't know how often they participate in that stuff.
No. So they're a builders club.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're really heavy into building shells, rockets. There's a lot of rocket guys in there, wheels and gerbs and all kinds of stuff like that. So, they're not really into like the showmanship side of it. So I'm kind of like a standalone on my own island in that club with that regard. They, like I said, they did do as a club, we did the opening show, I think, at the 23 PGI. So a couple of group members scripted that, and then a lot of us just helped out with product placement and e-matching and all that kind of stuff. But
Scott Shue and it was Scott Shue and who?
Lance Ho.
Okay, those 2. Oh, I remember that. I remember they was like a big, huge thing about the shells that came in were wrong or something.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that, but yeah, that was not, that ruffled a lot of feathers for sure.
That's all right. But you guys got through it though. So
exactly. Yeah. I just remember
actually, if you were there, that's probably was really good too. For,
I was standing
training.
right there when it happened, when they opened the box of shells. Like I think it was one day out, you know, and we're in a multi-day setup, and the product arrives and they're taking it off the truck and they're opening the boxes and they're realizing these are not the shell assortments that we were supposed to be getting.
Oh,
and their faces, and then both of them just went back to the camper trailer, grabbed a printer because they're going to have to redo all these, you know, labels and re-script all of these shells. And it was not a small amount. I don't know exactly how many, so I won't throw a number out, but it was not a small amount of shells that had to get, you know, redone in the show. And so they were in the camper for a couple hours. Fortunately, they had a crap load of single shots in that show, so we just kept plugging away on the single shots and stuff. And you know, then they were able to
was it a mispick at the vendor? Or was it a substitution that they just didn't clue in at?
He said he wasn't allowed to talk about it.
I don't think I'm allowed to talk about that. Gotcha. I'm not, because it's got bad blood in the water over it, and I think it's the people that were directly involved would be better to talk to about that because it was not good.
It's like our own personal episode of the old show Pyros when they got to that competition show and that French Canadian dude opens up his thing and just has a meltdown on camera.
I don't remember that
he was supposed to have these beautiful strobing shells for his finale. He was going to have like this strobe wash, and then he wound up getting like chrysanthemums or something. Just freaked out. Well, that sucks.
Yeah,
that's cool though that you actually went to PGI before you actually did one of these competitions too. You got to, you know, see what was all going on, what was it all about and everything as well. It brings so much knowledge into you being able to, you know, go to an event like that and be able to see what's going on.
It was a lot of experience in a short amount of time, but I like doing the shows.
It's the best way to learn.
You know, I'm not much into, you know, building the shells and, you know, making powders and stuff like that. I'd rather just be out on the field, busting my butt and getting sunburned. That's more my style.
The worker.
Yep. Lugging racks around.
I know you said it's primarily builders, but when you wind up going to a PGI or some of these other places, I mean, you know, Scott, when he would go to competitions, it always seemed like he had a healthy crew. Were all those people part of the Wisconsin scene, or were those like personal crews?
There's always people willing to help out from the club and, you know, help out with loaning out hardware and labor and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's no shortage of it there. They're pretty close or tight-knit group. I think there's like 100 or so registered members. So if you throw an email out to the group, you can usually get a couple of guys to help you out. And I did that at last year's PGI. I don't know why in 23, the first competition I did, I didn't really let anybody in the group know that I was going up for it. I just, you know, there was a couple of people that I'm closer with in the group and I, you know, pulled them in to help me out. But, you know, so in 24 last year, I sent an email out and I was able to get a couple of volunteers to come help. And, you know, that was a weird split because we got rained out the first day. So we shut down setup by like 11 or 12. Yeah. And then they pushed us to the next day. So, but we were able to get everything set up. That actually worked in our favor because I don't know if we would have made it if we were going to have to set up all in one day without the rain. We were kind of behind schedule. So I'm hoping I learned from that and have a little bit more organization for the COBRA-CON show.
Yeah. What's your crew looking like for COBRA-CON? Got people clamoring to be on your team?
No, just because it's a 7-hour drive for us.
Woo!
And then you got the hotel. So I got a couple of guys that are going to come with. I'm a big like cakes and shells person in my shows, but I'm going to probably go with a lot more work ahead of time and maybe not use as many things that have to be, configured in the field. So
yeah. I noticed that watching your PGI shows too. To me, you're a very symmetrical designer. How'd you develop your design style? Did you spend time watching other shows and kind of gaining inspiration? Or did you kind of go in and with a clean slate, just start doing you?
I think I kind of went in with just a mental picture of what I thought it should look like prior to doing a lot of deep dive into, different pyro musical videos and watching all the feeds coming out of like all these events. So like, especially in the 2023 PGI, it was pretty much just a open canvas at that point. And, I had a mental image of what I wanted to express of the music in the pyro that was going off, and, just ran with that, and over the years, I can't say I never saw a pyro musical video before that point. It's just, a lot of them were backyard stuff and, smaller scale things where, you pick up like little ideas here and there, but not so much with, these complex comet runs. For example, like a lot of the videos that you produced, from the lake show, those I had obviously seen prior to that competition, that first one. And, just that wasn't like the scale that I was looking to be on, obviously, that, because I know, I'm sure the Q count is enormous on something like that. Even, I don't know, that one lake show video was like maybe 2 or 3 minutes long, and I don't know how many cues you had in it, but it was way more cues than I have access to.
They wind up being a lot, but like that's what I kind of appreciate about at least the little things that I picked up in your design style, because it almost made me think, if I could draw a musical comparison, and are you a Johnny Cash fan?
I wouldn't consider myself a Johnny Cash fan.
Okay. All right. So
I'm familiar
for the sake, I guess just for the sake of making like a really weird metaphor, like one of the things that people would always say about Johnny Cash back in the day was like his sound was steady like a freight train, right? Mm-hmm. When I watch your shows at PGI, I get that because I've seen a lot of shows where it's really easy to oversaturate. And, one thing that I had to work on throughout the course of me learning me and my own design style was how to lasso that, I guess, and how to not make it messy, because it's so easy to be messy. And I've designed so many messy shows that, like you said before, you learn as you go. You're a sum of your experiences. And I can tell in the way that you design that where to put your focal points. That people are watching the show, but you also know that when you're drawing eyes to the left, or you're drawing eyes to the right, or you're drawing eyes up, or you want to keep eyes down, you're not putting so much shit out there that it's hard to find the focal point of that section. So it was something that I really appreciated in watching you work.
And a lot that I noticed in those videos, and I'm guessing on this, but I'm guessing you like more of the rock style kind of music. Because I noticed in the 2 videos I watched, both songs that were more like the, what was the name of that song?
My wife really liked
Nightmare, right? Was it Nightmare?
So 24, I did Avenged Sevenfold's Nightmare and Cat Leon's version of, I don't remember what the name of the song is, but I I like a lot of covers.
The Adele cover my wife loved.
I like that one too. Yeah, I like the covers, especially if they're like a rock or a metal cover of more of a pop song. Those tend to resonate with me a little bit more so than, just finding original pieces. Not that I'm against it, but that's what I like to try to aim for, because I like that, like, that faster paced emotion, especially, at least in the second half of the show, maybe something that's a little bit more
finale worthy. Yeah.
Finale worthy. That's good. That's a good way to describe it.
It's always a solid way to differentiate your segments too. But those, like the cover songs, I don't say this in a bad way, but they're very, very safe bets in a competitive landscape, right? Because you're picking a tune that's familiar, but it's still new. It's a different spin on something that a judging panel has probably heard, because it's a popular song and it's just a different spin on it. So it is a clever way to kind of, have your cake and eat it too, because the alternative is go back and shoot to the original, which a lot of times you can't convey the same kind of emotion that you were probably trying to convey unless you pick something that was a little more upbeat.
Right. Like the original version of the Adele song. I don't know if I could listen to that 437 times trying to script to it and then watch it play out, and, it just doesn't have the time signature on it that works for my style of pyro, and I like, I like to keep that steady beat. I'll kind of gravitate towards, the kick drums and, just be able to kind of syncopate my shots or, my breaks or whatever's going off. Yeah. And I really try to avoid that. Like you were saying before, I'm going to call it the sky puke sessions, but that's what I'm not trying to be, is the sky puke. But like I said, it's a lot of cakes and a lot of shells, and something that really rings in my head. Last year's PGI, I was competing against Ellery Tong Po. And, he was just kind of remarking about like how many cakes I had out there, which I had scaled back even from the 23 show. That 23 show, I had a total of 260 Qs. And then I went for 24 was 650.
Wow.
So it's quite a big jump. And I still had, quite a few cakes out there. And Ellery's just like, I can't use cakes, man. They just bite me every single time. And he's not wrong, because both shows, if you look at the end, there is one effing cake that is still going off when it shouldn't be. And it's like, I'm going to have to break that habit a little bit. Or, I was just listening to, I think I listened to a bunch of the podcasts. I was kind of getting caught up while I was doing renovation work over the weekend. But I think it was the Travis episode where, he was talking about how he's kind of moving his cakes inward on the show, not having them at the end where, then you got that awkward last 2 or 3 shots that go off when there's, before everybody claps or, whatever, or after, or even after it, that'd be even worse. Oh gosh. So, gonna try to absorb some of that.
And that's smart. I started doing that at the lake. So instead of ending with cakes that I knew I was going to kind of let, free roaming do their thing, I split up and sub-segmented my finales where I would have a traditional like brocade wash over, say the first 8 bars of my final chorus. So you get that feeling that you're getting this huge finale, the whole sky's blanketed with brocades. But then I very purposely started doing my, call it the final 8 bars or the final 4 bars or whatever it is, with just like straight single shots and runs and stuff that I could absolutely 100% control. And the reason I did that is exactly what you're talking about, is I got tired of getting to the end of the show and it would always jump off of the videos or it would jump out of the show and just bug me to death that, you got like one row that's just not, it's not performing and doing what it wants. I mean, the Lake Show does it. It's never merited enough for me to go in and just, do those absolute single inserts for every freaking break in a finale, that's not really the feeling that I wanted to create there. It was always like, it's a finale. It should feel like a finale. But at the same time, I was like, okay, how can I stop this? Like, how can I cut the head off of the snake and kill the problem? And the easiest solution for that was, okay, cool. I'll just cut my final chorus in half and then do the second half totally controlled. So I'm ending with something super tight rather than something that could potentially be loose and then fall off the rails at the end.
Yep, because it seemingly always will. So you learned my lesson there. That's just like, just don't do it. And that's my answer. But I guess what kind of irks me a little bit though is I'm using pretty much all Proline stuff. And to have sometimes on like a 12-shot big bore cake, plus or minus, like I think the worst one that I timed out was like a 20-second variance between two different cakes from the same case. I mean, come on. That's why, in my opinion, I'm paying a little bit extra of a premium for what is essentially a consumer cake, because it's still got the spacing, it's still, everything about it. But I want that fusing to be, much more on par with, what it should be especially in something like that, where it's not like, I shouldn't be having to deal with like potentially a hang fire situation internally with like a large zipper cake would have. More so than a big bore, because if a NOAB, they got double fuse in those. So it's at least going to burn through if one of the fuses goes out. Stuff like that,
it's gonna, it's gonna make it, and you're not gonna have a situation where you're gonna stop pass fire somewhere along the line.
Oh, are you using much for cakes in your shows?
I do use cakes, but everything is like road, which is actually the question I was going to ask both of you, because I know Bo does this, but I guess you are kind of right when you were talking about your finales. Usually you just light the cake and kind of let it do its thing. Mm-hmm. You ever both of you, I guess, thought about just controlling the same thing like you do in your show and row each cake so that way it ends when you want it to end?
And I have, even in the 23 show, I think I had the Dominator 25-shot falling leaves cake, and I rode that one out. All 5 rows were individually matched. That wasn't my problem cake. It was Wind Does Dive Deep, the horsetails in 23, and then 24, it was the Dominator 12-shot red strobe cake. So, I think there's just kind of this point where I get to in my show creation where I'm just like, man, I do not want to keep having to use up cues on individually matching, shots. And, maybe it's just kind of I'm trying to balance the workload against, maybe how many hands I'm going to have, as well as, the cue count that I'm working with. And maybe there's more efficient ways that I can learn to do the design of the show where, I can make adjustments where I'm not, being so like wasteful in certain areas and not as conscious enough in other areas of the show. I mean, small example is just to move the cakes from the back of the show inward and do not use them at the end. But there's quite a few hit points in, these shows where I don't want a cake burning when I got a low point in the music, so like you kind of have to like pick your battles type of thing.
So in your 23 show, you said the horse tail cake at the end. So I seen that, but that was like barely off. I mean, it fired right as the last of like the Nishiki kind of burned away. So that wasn't like horrible.
It wasn't horrible though.
Okay.
In my mind,
it was the end, and I'm like, that wasn't that bad. Actually,
in my mind, it's really horrible because I still think about it.
We're all like that to each other. So
I mean, the stuff that sticks out like a sore thumb. That's the stuff that always gets you, right? Because there's a certain degree of padding, I guess, or forgiveness that you can have if you're in the middle of the music track or you're making a transition point from one section to another, but the end of any one given song or segment, it's the last thing that people see. You want that bit to be as perfect as you can make it. You know, AJ, you had asked about matching all the different rows. Like, you know, for the longest time, I've done poor man slices for a billion years, but like on the finale, I absolutely adore just the traditional shell show finale. Watching the entire vertical spectrum just stack, the excitement in not knowing when all of these shells are going to break and how those breaks are playing off of each other in the vertical stack, which is why I always like to work that stuff into the lake. And I think I work it in just about any show that I design. There's always going to be a segment where I'm going to let those cakes do their thing. But what I'm trying to achieve with most of that is a symmetrical sight picture. So I want to, if there's a way to control the end, and if that means pulling some row fuse to make sure that I get some stuff that hits on the end, I think some of the NFA shows, I did the same thing where I sent up like volleys of canister shells and put those right on specific points at the end to try to kind of mask any late blooming stuff that happened. And like that early NFA show was just a disaster anyway, because we used a freaking Saturn missile battery that one of the guys just dumped a bunch of black powder on and glued it. And like, it was badass. Like the whole thing went up at once at like 4 positions. And then there, of course, there was one that just refused to behave. So when the show's over, you just get, it was terrible.
Please stop. Please
stop. Anytime you're ready, I'm ready to stop being embarrassed. Go ahead.
So, I mean, still being able to see like that whole movement, like you're talking about, I mean, it's like, so when you have like a zipper cake and you can kind of, you know, when you know what the cake's going to look like, if it takes like, say 1.5 seconds to go from left to right, you can still get that movement of left to right and randomization by just having each side of the row of that cake road so that it fires like it would.
You can totally do that.
Like, and then it comes over to the left and stops, and then the cake completely is done, and now you're screwed because one side's going.
You can totally rebuild all of that stuff from the ground up. But for something like the lake show, I have never seen the need, at least during those parts where I want that traditional finale look. As long as I can get my symmetry between all 3 of my main cake stations to look symmetrical, then like JP said, I mean, there's a lot of resources that would go into making that happen to make it look absolutely perfect. And I don't feel like, at least with the way that I have it structured now, where I'm taking that traditional random finale bit and putting it before a very controlled bit, where I'm like, all right, it doesn't necessarily bother me as much. And if I was going to do any amount of work to it, I think it would be to fixing the tail end of the finale. So if that means taking all of those cakes and shooting them as cakes, creating that symmetrical sight picture in that essence of randomness, but then take maybe the last couple of rows and then time those. So you do get this final symmetrical volley that will set up the transition period to really regimented stuff. Yeah, right.
To go from control to randomized, so you can see what you're talking about, and then that last control hit, basically.
Yeah, things have come to a head here, and now you're gearing up for another transitional point where you move into some of the really regimented and controlled stuff.
Spinning that a different way, you know, put yourself in the shoes of, you know, on the competition field, and let's say that you hypothetically had, you know, unlimited queues and unlimited manpower. Would you bother with cakes then, or would you strictly match everything that's going on there?
Well, it's a really good question, because if all of the variables are right, then my answer does completely change. If I had all of the resources in the world and it was a competition setting, then 100% every single queue on that field would be, I'd scrutinize it. That is me personally. It's very much like what AJ did when he went to PGI. Or what he did at Skywars, right? You're in a competition setting where you have to put your best foot forward. What can you do to make sure that everything that you can control is within your control? And we all know that with fireworks, there is only so much that we can control. But if you're good at figuring out how much control you have over those variables, then I think that kind of sets you up for at least the most success that you can have. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be stellar.
Yeah, 100%. Every slice in that poor man's slice cake that you have is going to shoot when it's supposed to, because something's going to catch the other row on fire unless you tear it apart and completely protect the next fuse behind it. Yeah. But you're doing, like you said, as much as you can humanly possible to make it look like that.
When I asked you that question earlier, AJ, I think I was, in my mind, I was referencing, your Skywars show. What did you use cakes in that show, or was that almost everything was individually matched?
The only thing that was fired as a cake was at the very beginning, or not right at the beginning. It was like a minute and a half in or something. It was when there was the red, green, and blue falling leaves. I shot those as cakes, and the ones in the middle, the blue ones, bit me because it just kept going. It was the only one.
Even your product selection too in Skywars, like there's plenty of product that natively came in cake form. It just, once it went up, or like when it was in the design, it was no longer. Yeah, right. It was no longer in cake form by the time it made its way into the show.
What's with all the paper towel tubes?
Yeah, right.
They're for show.
This one looks illegal because it doesn't have any text.
What's GD?
GD.
It's a code that only I know in my head.
Reference the map.
Yeah. It's in the truck.
I've been looking for this thing for the last hour and a half. He said it's in here somewhere. I know it is. It's gotta be. So have you started on your design yet, JP?
I have a whole 20 cues scripted so far.
Attaboy. You're on your way to bigger and better things.
Yep. It might just be a one fuse. I don't know. We'll see how far I get with it.
Which is good. That means you got it. You got at least one song on your timeline then.
Yeah, I do.
Perfect.
Metal, right?
Is it metal? I don't know, man.
Does it have drums, guitar, bass,
it
and they're played by a person?
For sure.
All right, then it's good music.
I was going to go a different direction with this particular competition, just having saw some of the videos from last year, in particular the RKM show. But I couldn't find what I was looking for, if you know what I mean. It's just like nothing was speaking to me. And, so I went back in the library, because everybody's got their library of stuff that they saved to a playlist or whatever. And I'm like, all right, we're going to pick these two. I've been wanting to do these two for a while. They fit in the time frame that they're allowing, that 5 minute.
Yeah.
5 minutes is... It's good, and it's also tough because it's tough to squeeze in. Like, one song's not enough.
Exactly.
And 2 songs is way too much.
Yeah.
And you got to be a good chop artist at, making 2 songs work in a 5 minute timeline.
Yeah. I know a guy.
Is the guy in the room with us right now?
He is.
Where is he? Did Jamie show up?
Shut up, seriously. He's not in here.
No,
he's not in here.
Oh
no! I deleted the link in Messenger just so he didn't pull in AJ and join halfway through and give me this overwhelming sense of anxiety. Like, oh my God, are all of these files actually going to upload now?
I never talked.
I know you didn't talk. That wouldn't stop the internet gods from completely pulling the plug on my very, very poor luck streak. But you're right, man. 5 minutes. I got to thinking about that this past week. I'm like, 3 minutes is right around one modern song length, or at least the length of time that we like to cut songs so we don't run into monotony, especially with modern rock songs. Like anything with a modern song structure, period, that's, it's got an intro, it's got a verse, it's got a chorus, it's got another verse, it's got a bridge, and then it's got another chorus. That's so much of the same stuff that it's very hard to create different sight pictures for each one of those sections, is because you're trying purposely to make your show look like a visual representation of the music. So if you do that one really good time through a chorus, it makes a lot of sense because of the way that songs are structured to make elements of that the exact same the second time around. But it's easy to do that too much. So you do every single chorus the same way that you do the first chorus, then every pyro that's in attendance is going to go, oh, I already saw that. Oh, I already saw that. So it's like you do have to chop it. And then when you wind up chopping it, you're like, oh shit, now it's 3 minutes long. Well, now I got 2 more minutes to fill. So I have to chop the next song, and I have to chop the next song even shorter. So you got to be really picky and choosy about what parts of the song speak to you.
Or find songs that have really long verses and really long breakdowns.
I think I would get bored though. It's a short attention span type of events, fireworks in general. You really have to hook your audience quickly and keep them hooked. Otherwise, you're just going to lose them. And I don't think that is any different when it comes to judging it, because ultimately it's the human brain is just going to like, oh, that looks like everything I've seen before in this particular person's pyromusical track that he just, he's going on 3.5 minutes of the same song. You already lost me. So, that's something that I'm always very aware of, and I try to cut out as much, like Nightmare, I think is like almost a 6-minute song.
Yeah, it's a long song.
I got that guy down to like 2 minutes and something, which was not easy, by the way, and then, and then being able to, go from the first to the first song into that, be able to transition between the two, so there's a little bit of artistry there too, I think, when it comes to designers and, just the work ahead of even opening up your scripting software and, throwing your product into the sheets is you got to deal with the music side of it too. And that can be a challenge, I think, for a lot of guys, especially if they really just don't have that like natural inkling to, how music is constructed, the different parts. And, just like what you said, you're going through the choruses and the refrain and, the different instrumentals and, where do you chop that? And, not playing the entirety of a song. I don't know. I think if I went through my pyromusical playlist of saved music, there isn't a single song in there that I would let it run out its entire duration. Maybe you guys have different type of music than me that you've got saved, but I just can't think.
Oh, dude, I think the only time that you, and again, this is all subjective, right? Like because there could be a pyromusical artist out there that could put the most repetitive pop song in the world up and then make all of the different parts look interesting. But, I'm just like, because I'm a musician, I kind of come from that world. I understand that there is a ton of refrain in modern songs, especially like the songs that I'm really into. That is a very real thing. So it's very hard for me to disassociate from knowing that. But you're right. It is difficult for pyro guys that want to chop songs up. I'll see tracks quite often where guys will take them and they'll cut them, and you're always trying to make the most low-key cuts in the world. If you can start your track and end your track and you never once noticed a transition or noticed a difference, then you've done it right, because like that's how you've created a seamless track. And I think from that point, it's selecting the music that makes the most sense for your show to progress from the beginning to the end. But I think as far as crazy music goes, I'd love to see somebody someday do like progressive music, like progressive rock music. I've always hated it, to be honest. Like progressive music
either.
Yeah, dude, I've never liked progressive rock music, but I've always been curious to see what somebody could do in a pyro musical. They're all over the place instrumentally. I mean, refrain is almost unheard of in progressive music. It is a song that continually changes. I always thought that'd be interesting. Does somebody do like a Dream Theater song or like a Between the Buried and Me or just something really crazy?
And Pink Floyd technically is progressive.
Pink Floyd.
It's progressive.
I love David Gilmour.
I mean, if you were doing like a, Heavy on the Shell show, or you had to get it up real high for a public audience or something, I could see doing a song like that, like what AJ said, like a Pink Floyd track and just kind of stretching it out. But I don't really consider that like the type of pyro musical I want to be putting on. I like I liked some rapidness to it and, some comet work. I don't want it to just all be big breaks and very little on the lower end, and then
sounds like you're hanging out with the right guys then.
In the 20, what was it? The last year's show that was the first time I got into the close proc stuff, and I really like that. I think Nathan or Michael mentioned it on his talk with you guys too. So I'm expecting he's probably going to be coming out with quite a bit of close procs in his show as well. So I'll be really interested to see that and how he uses it. And I don't think there was like a whole lot available up until Raccoon started that, like, that stage effects line. It was really just strobes and flames and, the things in that category that what Dominator would have, or, maybe you could get some Vulcan stuff. But, now that Raccoon's got they got like, I don't know how good they are, and I'm scared to try one as far as like, I don't think it's going to live up to my expectations, but they have like the colored fireballs. I don't know if you saw the videos on those from Raccoon.
Yeah, AJ, I think you sent me a video on one of those.
Yeah, it was like,
they're not cheap, and I want to see one before I buy them.
Yeah, well, right, because the thing that I always absolutely can't stand about the pre-production videos that come out of China, because I have no idea if it is actually a pre-production video, but they oversaturate the shit out of those videos, and they do it on purpose because they want you to think that this is this like it's super vibrant color. Then you get it, and it doesn't at all have that hue to it, and it's just a monumental letdown. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's not to say that like Raccoon has ever done that. Raccoon stuff is fucking top notch. I've loved everything that those guys have produced.
Absolutely.
For a while. I mean, they've been a breath of fresh air over the last few years.
I don't know. And watching that video of that effect, even if it's oversaturated, it's the sound and the height of it that's still there. Mm-hmm. So I think it's basically just a giant version, I think, of like, what is that 76 effect? It's like a 50-foot gerb or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot the name of that one. Same thing, just gerb. It's a gerb.
It's a gerb.
It's a jet.
It's a gerb. It's a gastrointestinal disease. So what's your take on the rule set?
Oh, okay. Good point of conversation.
I'm going to ask this to all of you guys.
Yeah. I honestly, I forgot what Michael said already.
I forgot what the rules were, man. I'm almost done with my design. I guess I got to pull these 30-foot lifts out.
I don't know. I just got the one fuse, so I'm good to go, man.
What do you mean you only need one Talon?
You guys use those little match things?
Yeah,
I use these plastic ones. They got a little wire in it. It heats
run a shoot wire out there for my 9-volt battery and hit that and be good to go.
Okay, everybody help me count it down.
There you go. You just got your long-lasting section. You can play the Mission Impossible theme and just light a really small fuse.
And then we can watch it for the first 4 minutes as it makes its way out to the field. 5 minutes
going.
Yeah, 5 positions over 210-foot wingspan. 12-foot cap on mounting structures. I don't think we talked about that one really last week on Mike's episode. And then obviously no cue limits and the finger quotes $1,000 budget from American Fireworks.
Yeah, let's start there.
Cool.
$1,000 budget.
Let's start. Yeah, that's a good place to start.
So I don't know if they probably picked the right people to like kind of keep that reined in. I just have a feeling like that might be the part where it gets a little bit away from them with the, how much people are putting into these shows. Yeah. I really think that, they're trying to term this as a backyard pyro competition. And they're real heavy on that emphasis. And I think that in order to really carry that to true would be, lock it in.
Totally.
Lock it in at $1,000 or, lock it in at $1,000 and, $500 or your own cash if you want.
Yeah.
I guess. But, I really just think, I think they should just cap it at the $1,000 because I like that would also put the stress on the designers to make that product stretch to a 5-minute show across 5 positions. That there's a little bit of work that has to be done to make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, if they had but I think in future years, they'll look at this thing and one, it will probably have a cap, but 2, I think they'll spend more time pursuing other sponsors for it. So it kind of fills it out because, 5 minutes, we talked about this a smidgen last week, 5 minutes. If you took $1,000 and tried to apply that over 5 minutes, did I use the Bilbo Baggins reference last week? I don't want to say the same thing every single week, but no. Okay. Yeah. The old Gandalf, I feel like too little butter spread over too much bread metaphor. Because dude, $1,000, I did $1,000 over maybe 3 minutes.
Seconds.
Yeah. Right. 5 or 6 years ago. And to me, it was enough, but it didn't seem like it, given where I was at the time.
Sure. But they are trying to really coin this as the backyard pyro musical.
A true pro-AM, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't think like the average backyard enthusiast getting into pyro musicals, they're probably somewhere in that range, budget-wise. They're going to try and go for, probably some more cakes, not as many single shots.
Yeah.
Be able to spread that budget out over that 5 minutes.
That's AJ, Jamie and I's joke for Sky Wars when Brian would pick up that mic every year. And this is all the stuff that you can get at the tent.
Yeah.
And then the show shoots and everybody in the audience is like, where the fuck do you buy that? What? How do I make my show look like that?
What's
Can I get a vendor list, please?
They sell that at TNT.
Yeah. That's horrible.
Merv, gonna go down to TNT. I'm gonna talk to Merv. Hey Merv, I want this. And then you just show him a video of your show and then watch Merv's face just melt away. Well, actually, he probably wouldn't. Merv would probably go, you know what? I got you what you need. It's right over here.
Yeah.
I said, wait, you're telling me that $300 200 shot zipper cake that's as big as the shopping cart, that's going to do that? Oh yeah, that's it, man. That's what you want.
Definitely.
That's exactly what you want.
And then your dad's like, sold.
Yeah, the budget thing's interesting, man. What I would just love to see out of all of these competitions is solid definitions in the rule set. If you leave any potential for a gray area, you bet your ass that hobbyist pyros are going to find it.
Mm-hmm.
because it's kind of exactly what that's what we do, because we look at it, and I think, our thought is we want to find that competitive advantage, but at the same time, like that well-defined rule set. I think for the most part, just like I said on Mike's episode last week, I think the rule sets on everything are well enough done to where they're not going to be prohibiting you guys creatively. It's just the only one that probably is going to use some work, which I think those guys are totally capable of making adjustments on and fixing in future years, is the budget. Just like you said, you either get enough sponsors to cover the entirety of the budget, and then you put the responsibility on somebody internally in the organization to do something similar to what the Sky Wars teams do, and then they have somebody that essentially audits it, right? They're auditing the price list, they're auditing what gets designed into the show to make sure that that's what's there, and then you're good. Everybody gets approved, and then off to the field they go. But it's in setting those definitions that I think is probably, that's always, just like you said 2 or 3 times before, hindsight's 2020, right? You got to experience and grow through making decisions and doing stuff. You're creating competition. I think these guys, for the most part, did a really good job.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be to an unreasonable level. I guess the other idea that I had, thinking it over, is okay. They allowed us, or they're allowing us to, ship our product out. Originally, we were told it was going to have to go to the convention, and then you'd have to set up in the field. Man. It would be, but you could use that to, the rule set, and let's say you're only limited to having 2 other helpers, and then you physically can't set up $8,000 worth of stuff out there in the amount of time that you had, because you got to go grab it off the truck. Get it.
How'd you know what Mike said he was spending? Oh wait, never mind. Oops.
We got outed.
You're stirring the pot. Yeah. Get that big wooden spoon out.
I sincerely hope nobody spends $8,000 on a 5-minute show.
To me, the joke is on them. $8,000, $7,000 out of pocket. I'd be divorced when I went home.
Oh no, yeah,
I'd be divorced before I ever left for the competition.
Nah.
Yeah.
You're just throwing
I can
money
hide those. I can hide those costs in guitars. I can't hide them in fireworks. They look a lot more. It looks a lot bigger when you walk into any garage, or actually any space. I keep all my spaces right.
Like Jamie's ship says to Chad's.
Did you just out him on the air? Oh, he's not even need to defend himself.
AJ's an expert doxer. That's oh man. So on that mounting structure thing, have you done mounts before? PGI shows, I don't know if I saw any. I saw a lot of ground effects. I don't remember seeing any mounts.
But those ground effects were 6 feet in the air.
Oh,
they didn't look like it, because if I hadn't have gotten them in the air, you wouldn't have seen them at all.
Yeah.
So
get them up there and nice and level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting inclusion in the rules. It's like, okay. It piqued my curiosity. It's something I'm considering. It's not anything I've done as far as a tower before.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know if I'd consider 12 feet a tower. Really.
Yeah, I know, dude. And even at that distance, depending on the site,
how tall you are. 12 feet is a tower.
Yeah, yeah. For Nathan Dexter, that's like bellying up to the bar. I think what that does do is you kind of hit a good point there. Not even necessarily using them as a tower, because again, what the hell can you achieve at 12 feet? At 12 feet, even at 200 feet or 250 feet off the line, it'll be noticeable that it's elevated, but I don't think you're going to get any crazy differentiation between traditional ground effects and if you had something on the tower, unless you did something crazy where you had gerbs coming off and they were perpendicular to what you have on the ground or something. Maybe you might see that, or like, like Saxons or 1/4, those spinner wheels that are up there. But I think it's great for leveling your product because it does give you guys the opportunity to create a solid foundation along your ground plane.
I'm really liking the 5 stations. Typically, I usually have my close procs, and then I got my fronts, just like any other show would.
Yeah.
So squeezing everything together, I think is actually helping me in the actual layout and design side of things, because I always end up with wasted module space when I separate everything out. But I got, and I think this was on the podcast with Ellery. He mentioned that show at PGI 23 where he had to separate his 62 millimeters from small bore cakes and stuff like that, and it really kind of burned him. I ended up in that same boat.
You had to go back farther with him.
Yeah, it all had to go behind the berm, and I didn't have the modules to make that work. So, when I scripted my 24 show, I broke everything apart. So I ended up with 27 stations total, and that was so I could be modular about it. And if I was going to end up with stuff getting pushed back, I could take an entire line and move it somewhere. But that also resulted in just a huge amount of wasted Cobra module space too. Just because I'm working with borrowed equipment, and I've got some got slats, some got onboard, some got quick plug, some got standard, and it's like, so I'm like, it's like Rain Man math, I got the whiteboard out. I'm trying to freaking okay.
Damn it, I thought this was going to be easier.
That part has never been easy. Yeah.
These are on board? Wow, we bought the wrong match.
Well, then then you have to have an inventory of both matches, equal inventory of both matches. So it doesn't matter then,
having experienced that before though, it's a pain, obviously, because it's like you get a bunch of different gear configurations that come in, and then you have to figure out where they make the most sense on your site map. And then you have to try to communicate that to the rest of your crew that's kind of helping set things up, because that obviously changes things. Would you say that are you practiced in doing that? Are you pretty good at it?
I would say I'm getting there. I think I'm pretty good on direction when it comes to the helpers in the field. But when it comes to the hardware, I'm trying to revamp what I own personally. I started off with almost all of my modules were standard plug, which nothing wrong with standard, nothing, wrong with QP. It's just, I had, a 72 with no onboards at all. So I had slats, those were QP, and then everything else was standard. I'm like, and then I'm slowly acquiring used modules over time. And, some are coming in with QP and some of them are coming in with standard plug. And I'm like, okay, this is starting to become a headache. So now I'm starting to unload, like, for example, 18Ms. I really prefer the 36, and I especially prefer it with onboard and slat connectors, so that I get versatility. I can drop a mod at one station. I can run slats down if I need to, or I can just get my slats 7 feet away if I need to, and just kind of revising all of that so that I think I'm going the quick plug route. But then you bring in all of these borrowed pieces of equipment, and it's a crapshoot as to what you're getting as far as it's not even from the same people every show. So if I had some consistency there, it might be a little easier. But what I have been doing is trying to just request 36s that have at least the slat connectors, and just buying the slats on my own, because that's not a horrible investment. But for me to go out and get, another 20 or 30, 36Ms, I don't think so.
You got it, man.
Yeah, right. Well, says the guy, I learned a couple things listening to all the podcasts. One of them was you guys love innuendos. And the second is that the second was that AJ has he's got a trust fund or he won the lottery. I don't know which, but
no, that AJ, Jamie does.
Jamie,
oh, Jamie did.
Jamie money.
Jamie money.
Well, I mean, I suppose there's worse things that you could have picked up on.
That's all I learned, though. Nothing else.
Oh, you're welcome. My mom hates this show. Every time AJ says that's what she said, she's like, "Why does he's so sexual? Why does he do that?
It's so sexual.
So sexual. Why does he do that?
Why should she say it like that?
Mom.
All the while, AJ's mom's laughing her ass off. That's my boy. Raised him right.
You guys crack me up.
Yeah, man, the different gear configurations, it sounds like you're doing it the right way, though. And that's one thing that I've grown to appreciate over the years with Cobra is the flexibility in having multiple means of connection when you come off of the module, right? You know, being provided either the old Centronics connector or the DB25 connector and then coming out to a slat, especially if you're buying used gear. You know, you can buy used gear and you can retrofit it with like a DB25 connector, especially if you've got like you can, you know, if it's a multi-channel module, like a 36 or 72, then you can totally get a new Pro Adept plate. So there's some costs associated with it. Obviously, same thing with the 18Ms. You can you get rid of that third Q strip and throw a DB25 connector in there. But it opens up a whole new world of versatility because it allows you to connect your system any way that you might need to connect it. You know, you go do your own thing. And if you're a quick plug guy, you can do all quick plugs. You know, if you're outfitted and you have enough slats for it. If you go to a club thing where the club is historically, you know, they're only going to buy standard wire to board E-match, then you're good because you can just outfit yourself with some slats and you're good to go. There's always costs associated with it, but I love the fact that you have the option, you know, that Cobra gives you that.
Did both of you guys start off on Cobra right from the get-go, or were there other systems involved in there?
It was right to Cobra, except I learned the hard way and I was using suitcases.
I was blowing up resistors and Kleenex in a straw to light fuses. And then I realized, I'm like, oh yeah, there's, you can buy firing systems that do this for you. Perfect.
I thought he meant once we got into like the musical stuff.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, as far as like systems, yeah, as far as like systems go though, actually, you know what? I take that back. Cause I went from blowing up resistors jammed into straws with Kleenex and matches to is it RF remote tech?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've heard of that.
I had one of those and the battery lasted about 6 months. And then I'm like, well, this sucks. So then I looked at what else was out there. And I think I watched like, I can't remember. I don't know if it was a Joel Robinson video. I think it might have been a Joel Robinson video or a Dave Display Fireworks one. Mm-hmm. I think I watched one of his videos and he was talking about Cobra stuff. And then I looked him up and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This looks like it'll do everything I want it to do. And then from there it was Finale. When I found Finale Fireworks, Finale Business, the old 2D version, that the whole creative side of what you could do with choreographed shows kind of came into like it dawned on me. I'm like, wow, okay, this is now so much more than just helping my dad with a 4th of July show that, you know, if I'm lucky, he'll let me carry a box or something to now maybe we can do something cool. Not that what he was doing wasn't cool, but like it gave us an opportunity to really open it up and do something that's like, dude, this could be something super big. All right, Dad, picture this. It's a terrible idea, but I don't like any of this.
Really? You got shot down right away?
Oh yeah. He didn't like you did that first year was like it was like pulling teeth. And you should have seen it too, because like we shot that little segment maybe an hour and a half late because you make so many poor decisions the first time that you do something because you've never done it before. I bought 3-foot E-Match off of eBay, and we have rafts that are 7 to 10 feet, and so you're scab wiring for an hour and a half, and then the whole thing doesn't go up. People are screaming to shoot the show, and all the while my dad's just standing there with his hands on his hips like, this is all your fault. Yeah, right. This is all your fault, dude.
Oh, rough. I think we've all been through it though. It's really have those like catastrophic implosions of a show. I think the one that stands out to me the most was it was the first fourth that I was going to use. Do you guys remember the system WPS? Wireless firing.
Oh, that was like it was like a little box, right? It
was a box,
it had like multiple wires that came out of it or something.
Yeah, so it basically
just described every firing system.
No. This looks like it's like a little square.
It has 12 RJ45 ports on the top of it.
Okay.
And you run Ethernet cables off of that to slats.
Cool.
Which was very attractive to me because I decided going that route instead of Cobra at that time, and the price differential was quite a bit more in favor of WPS. We'll learn our lesson later on in the story, but so I'm testing the system out, kind of learning it. You script in pyro ignition control. I think Ken mentioned on his recent podcast with you guys, or somewhat recent podcast, he still uses that software with his Fire Tech guy?
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy. That software's so old and dated looking, but anyway, so you use that, so I'm learning the ropes, and I'm like, this is the first system that I'm going from the Chinese push button into, where I can do a fully automated show. I'm not doing a pyro musical, but so it provided you enough automation to do basic scripting. Oh yeah. I mean, it had built-in audio capabilities, and in fact, I think I actually had music going along with the show, not a pyro musical, but just some hit points or whatever. So I get this thing scripted out. I get all my product purchased. 4th of July rolls around. I got 5-6 friends helping me set this thing up. It's a pretty big show that I'm taking on, just for a backyard gig at the brother-in-law's place, and we come to showtime, and it's got kind of a weird remote. The remote's got a screen on it, but other than that, it kind of looks like one of those old style cordless phones from the 90s in that beige color. Yeah. Is it wired? I mean, is it running? No, it's wireless. It's wireless. Okay. Yeah. What is it? I mean, is it running off of, is it just RF? I think it might have been what frequency it operated on?
I think it's RF because it has the pull-out chrome antenna.
Yeah, it had a pull-out antenna.
Yeah, the old school late 80s Bond villain bomb detonator.
Yeah,
exactly. Just like that. Yeah. The red fire button on it. Yeah. The module itself didn't look so dated, but the remote was awful looking.
Yeah. Didn't they make two different modules though? I could have sworn there's one that was in a box, and then there's one that looked like it was a cigarette pack, kind of smaller thing. Yeah, I had the 144 Q. So one module got you 144 Qs on 12 Q rails.
That seems like a lot for one of those little RF systems.
It's pretty decently made system.
Yeah.
With a caveat there. There's a big asterisk on that. The battery inside was
the remote looked like it was a calculator.
Yeah.
It looked like a
calculator.
TI 84, whatever.
Yeah. So I get this thing set up, and we're getting close to shoot time, sun's down, and I go to plug in the USB cable that connects the remote to the laptop, where I got pyro ignition control pulled up and the script in. Push the USB cable into the remote, and the freaking USB port just goes right inside the remote. Solder joints broke.
Oh my God.
Oh, what?
Oh my God.
First time I'm using this
the solder joints broke, and the whole port just
the whole port just disconnected right from the circuit board. Like, oh, so my brother's got this thing apart on the table. He's trying to solder it. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do to salvage this whole show. Cause like everything is poked and matched. I have no fuses out there. Man. I can't take a torch and run around with it.
Oh, so God.
We had to scrap the idea of scripting and the music that went along with it. And I just take the remote because the remote still functions as like just a pinboard style thing. Yeah. You can just push 1, 2, 3, so I go out to my shooting station and I get it armed and I hit the cue, nothing. Looking at the remote, because the remote is actually smart enough. It's a 2-way communication with the module in the field.
Yeah.
It's not seeing the module. Like, oh my God. Okay. Fortunately, the module itself, you could also fire from that without the remote.
Oh, that sounds safe.
It means you're in the field, but so you can get a show up still, so I'm just, I'm just firing.
AJ does not like this. Sounds like something
I
Doug
was
might
thinking
like.
the same thing in my head. I'm like, hey, Doug. It's like hand firing. Just run over, push down, push button, run.
And I do. And I go down there, I turn it to the fire mode that allows you to fire it on the module. And I hit the first button and nothing. Okay. I hit 2 and half the field goes up.
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah. So at that point, we just, I don't know if I want to air this, but I ran around pulling matches out of cakes, taking a torch and just leaning into the hole and just.
Hey,
I swear to God, there's something flammable in there. Yeah, right.
If
anything, the paper is
Jimmy
right.
Gooby Dart said the keys can't, remember?
Yeah.
The 1 inch and a half mine that didn't go. He's like,
oh yeah,
someone give me a torch.
Give me a torch.
Just right into the lift charge. Yeah. F it. Just going for it.
Right. Like, I mean, the whole show's going to fall. Like in your case though, the whole show falls apart if you don't do that. I mean, at that point, I'm sure you're pretty, God, what's the word? Devastated.
Yeah. Devastated would be a good word for it.
But you're still doing damage control. Jim's solving problems. We had a great show and he's solving problems. Like there's a mine that didn't go off. Come on, I got this, guys. I'm going to save the day.
Well, you got a whole crowd, that was expecting a show. And, it's like I just did what I had to do. And, that was stupid. I'll never do that again. But, and I still ended up going home with a ton of product that, I couldn't get it airborne for one reason or another, like slices and stuff. I wasn't gonna like try to hit the lift on a slice and have that thing take. I was just hitting the straight cakes or, like the zippers and stuff that I knew, wasn't just gonna like take my head off.
How did the module not work either? So was it a battery thing? Did you figure it out?
Yeah, I did figure it out. So in between my frustration and me wanting to, take a look at this system months after this event, I basically mothballed the whole thing. Yeah. I finally pulled it down, come winter, time to kind of reevaluate pyro stuff and inventory. I'm playing around with this system on the bench and I'm realizing that when I'm firing cues, I did get the remote working at that point. I think it fell out of sync or something happened. And then obviously the USB port thing, but then the module itself, if I'm firing on the module or the remote, I'm seeing where if I hit, Q5, for example, it's hitting Q5 plus Q55, 65, 75, 85.
Anything with a 5 in it.
And this is months after that show. And I had the module, for probably 6 months even before that. Meanwhile, that company goes defunct. So I don't have
I guess my customer service ticket's going to remain open in perpetuity.
He did respond to his credit and gave me some pointers. And so I ended up having to
sell it.
Well,
actually, at that point, it wouldn't even be sell. It would be just go ahead and use this as a, if you need something that's right, stop your trailer from rolling.
I still wanted to use it. So, I kind of figured out what it was. And like, I'm a tech guy, but I'm not a circuitry person.
Yeah.
I don't have microscopes and solder baths and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I ended up sending it out to a guy on eBay that just does circuit board repair, like board level repairs. And, he figured out that there was 2 bad MOSFETs on the board right from the get-go.
Dude. Wow.
So he replaced it. I got the system working. It's actually got a pretty big following in Europe because that's where the system's originally from is, I think Great Britain, but I sold it to a guy on eBay in Italy, that was adding to his already existing WPS system. And that was the end of that nightmare of, a firing system. After that, I kind of reevaluated being the frugal Prioro and decided that's probably not going to be the best avenue to go down. These homebrew racks and not having, one of the tier 1 firing systems that's out there is just, it's never going to work out. So that's the dive into, looking at, we
all do it though, man.
And,
that's a hell of a story, man. Like I've heard some interesting stories, and there's always good ones, but that one is that's a one that's just full of failure.
And it wasn't even my fault. I felt like I was prepared. I tested things, and I'm on Backyard Enthusiast and Pyro U, and watching everybody's checklists that they do going up. It's test your show, dry fire, dry run, and I'm doing all that stuff, and I just didn't catch it. So it's just that was a major learning curve right there.
Did you? I have a question. Did you get on those forums after the fact and say, "Hey guys, this is what happened"?
I flogged that system so hard on those message boards.
Oh man!
Did you get your
message
fair
board?
Dude, that's
share
unacceptable.
of system lovers that came back and they're like, "Oh,
nobody even knows what that system is."
Everybody knows that you need to take a multimeter to your MOSFETs before you run this out to the field.
I should take that back. I actually there's a Pyro. It's not Pyro Talk. I keep wanting to say Pyro Talk, but there's a similar one in Europe, and I actually got booted off of that board because I was, just
had enough of the American.
Yeah, they didn't like me.
You guys in your damn 60 hertz AC current. We're done with you.
Your Miles and Bald Eagles.
That's right. That's why you burned up your MOSFETs. Yeah, right. Was that a rechargeable battery at that time? It was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah, it was a LiPo battery, and there's a pretty big one too.
That's really interesting.
I mean, by all rights, it should have been a great system, and it had a lot of flexibility to it. It's just that it was small batch made, and the QC wasn't there. It was a single man operation. But it seemed, other than the remote, the actual modules itself were really nice. I liked that part of it. But what are you going to do? So.
I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm glad that you, 1, that you learned something, 2, that you scrapped the system, and 3, that you're still with us. Because lighting poked holes full of black powder, that could have ended very poorly.
I'm persistent. I'll put it that way.
I love it.
I wasn't going to give up on that. I figure you got to get that out of the way one way or another. It's going to happen to everybody. You might as well just do it all on the front end, and then it should be a little bit smoother sailing each time you go out and do it over again and figure out your processes. It's no different.
Dude. We're all sums of our experiences, and what's beautiful about this community is you have your experiences, and then you can share those experiences with other people, and then they can take it at face value, right? They figure if your experience could in any way, shape, or form apply to their personal shows or their situation or application, then at that point, it's up to them to determine whether or not they find the information useful. So I think it's, we kind of do that stuff. We get on here and we're like, oh man, we maybe shouldn't share that. Maybe we shouldn't say that out loud. But it's like, I think it's healthy to do that, because I believe we've all completely grown. And even if that means stuff that's completely out of our control, like you just firing systems that don't ever work, this is good information. As many people as there are that love pyro, I still think it's a small enough community and a small enough user base to where so much value can be held in those opinions. So I'm quite sure that the forum that you were on before you got booted off of it for being a naysayer came in handy to some.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the European one, they weren't too fond of Americans to begin with. So that's all right.
Damn Yanks. All right, let's see here. We're going to do, I think we got voicemails for you, dude. So let's do this. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about from COBRA-CON before we move on?
No, I mean, it's the first time I'm going to COBRA-CON. I'm hoping that everything shakes out so I can actually still get to the convention and, see
well, the fact is, I had no idea that you guys were going on Friday until a few weeks ago. So that'll be really cool that you guys can stick around and actually do convention stuff on Saturday.
Yeah.
It sounds like. So that'd be fun. Well, I know what you can do. Actually, I don't know. What day is our seminar, AJ? Are we on Friday or Saturday? Seminars.
What seminars are? He's
muted. Maybe I bet he.
No, I'm listening. I'm looking it up. My kid keeps coming in here. Are you going to come tuck me in? Like,
get
seriously?
Out. Get
exactly.
out.
Like, get out of here.
All right. Actually, you know what? This is a pretty good segue.
Today in Pyro News.
COBRA-CON tickets are still on sale. COBRA-CON.com. I believe the early bird ticket pricing is over. So now you will be paying full price to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. If you would like to school yourselves, we'd love to slap you with some knowledge. I will be your new defense against the dark arts teacher this year. AJ is kind of like Hagrid. He lives in the shed, has a hard time spelling. And Jamie is the castle's resident lawn care professional. We're going to be teaching the Angles seminar. And I'm also going to be doing a seminar on advanced audio editing techniques that you can employ to inject your semi-sexy. I learned the basics pyro soundtracks with more sexy than Chad's 1.21 gigawatt PA system can handle. So
we are on Saturday. We're the last class on Saturday. Oh, save the best for last.
Is that the Angles class?
Yeah, I think that's the Angles class. Awesome. When is my audio class? I never looked.
Your audio class is... Let's see here. God, there's a lot of sessions. A lot of
shows, a whole lot of stuff going on that weekend. Every time you go to the COBRA-CON site,
mastering professional sound check techniques. Yeah, that's you right there. Yeah, you are. It's right before this one.
Is it? So are you kidding me? It's going to be
yeah, you literally.
Oh my God!
Is it 12? So that one's from 2:30 to 3:30 on 4/12.
Okay.
So let's see. What does that make it for the other one?
You know what this means. Well, if it's at 2:30 though, then maybe we can.
We're in the same room.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I'm guessing. I don't know.
I really hope we are in the same room. Because I wanted
that would really suck.
I wanted to take up I wanted to put up some of the expo stuff in the room, but I never looked to see if they were, when you said back to back like that, I'm like, well, how are we supposed to get all that stuff from one room to another that quickly? We
just
cannot.
Want to talk to Jonathan. Yeah, it's literally 15 minutes after the.
Okay.
After that,
that's good. All right, go stock up on your ACE inhibitors and your Adderall. We'll have spatulas ready to scoop your brains off the floor. After anybody, actually, especially since we're going to be talking that long, listening to all of us for hours and hours and hours, and if it starts at 2:30, then I suppose that means we can drink hardcore. No, I guess not hardcore. That's a hell. I don't want to. It's a hell of a hangover to teach through. I don't want to do that.
Wake up the next morning. I gotta drive home.
Yeah. No.
I don't want to drive home.
All right. And then let's do some voicemails.
No one is available to take your call. Why don't you ever pick up the phone? I've got something to rescue. I was so reckless in your brain. Guys, there's so much knowledge in here. Ready legs, ready legs, ready legs, ready legs, and I'll give it to me.
All right, JP, we got 4 voicemails for you, buddy. We've got, and actually, you know what? We'll call it 3 because I think J Boz left 2 of them. All right. Let me see if this works. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Instead of a Rick roll, can we do a Hanson roll?
I
You get it? Okay, that's J Boz message number 1, and this is J Boz message number 2.
I'm just kidding. We ain't got to do no Hanson roll. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys at COBRA-CON. Have a great day.
Hell yeah, that's right. Jessica did say that she got her ticket.
Yep.
Now she's just trying to find a place to stay.
The Comfort Inn was an okay option for
Was it
not
pretty
a bad price,
affordable? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, comparative to like what else was out there, there was like the Super 8s and stuff that were a little bit more on the sketchy end and not that much cheaper. So
Yeah.
I'd look at that because the actual hotel at the convention center is booked out.
Dude, it's so expensive.
Yeah. All of the hotels were in the area. They were all like, where are we? This is Indiana, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are they
exactly?
Why are they
think that you're in
$200 a night?
SoCal?
Right.
I could have bought a 72.
Yeah. The next voicemail is from JP's antenna.
Oh.
We've been trying to reach you concerning your antenna's extended warranty. This is a matter of most importance to protect against fire damage and more. Please call 518-741-4300. Thank you.
They're trying to warranty your old firing system.
Yeah, I think so.
They're trying to get you to warranty and re-up the warranty on your old firing system.
Oh my gosh, that thing.
All right, last one's from Dylan Doyle.
Long-time listener, first-time caller here. I've enjoyed working on shows with both JP and AJ in the past.
Hell yeah.
My question here is, how do you think modern metal and EDM artists are redefining the use of pyrotechnics in their live shows compared to, I guess, classical, older, maybe 90s, early 2000 shows?
All right, I'm going to pause it before we get to there's a whole second half to this, but that's a really good question, JP.
Wow, okay. I mean, you know, obviously the productions just get bigger and bigger every year. You know, that's, you see it on both sides of those genres. You know, even the guys that have been known for their pyro demonstrations in their shows, like, I'm going to take Rammstein, for example.
Yeah.
You know, their productions are they increase them or top their last year's production every single year. You know, they get crazier and crazier, and you wouldn't think that there's any room to go up, but they definitely do. You know, I think that it's interesting to see what happens, like when there's a fire ban or a drought, what they do in those situations to augment what would normally be, you know, pyro sequences, and, you know, they can add in like the drones and, you know, work with the lights more to still captivate that audience and still make that production seem top notch, even though they can't add their stage effects and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, the technology, dude, I think it's only going to get, we're in for bigger experiences the more that the technology continues to progress. And what I really like about the modern artist is the way that some of these bigger artists are redefining the way that the patrons and the spectators see their show. You know, you go to some of these shows where, the traditional concert setup is stage in the front and there's your audience. Your audience is just, you're always kind of on looking, right? But they're redefining the way that people view these shows. You know, you've got stages, you know, Metallica's done it. I think, you know, as much as I don't like Taylor Swift or some of these other big artists, but I think Katie went to a show with Stephanie, Jamie's wife, here recently, where they saw Jelly Roll. And I think it was another instance of a concert where you're in a big venue and the stage is in the middle of the venue. Mm-hmm. You know,
like
it's
a peninsula, or it's 360 degrees. Yeah.
So you have all of these different angles that people can enjoy the show, which I think that only does really cool things for lighting designers and pyro designers, because like you see what some of these LDs do with 360 degrees at like some of these European nightclubs and stuff. I mean, it's absolutely insane what they have to work with. I think the technology is only making this stuff cooler.
I agree.
What do you think, AJ?
I think it's just grown more because of how the music, that kind of music allows you to do more with. You can do more designing than basically like your basic 1, 2, 3, 4 songs back in the day.
Go watch, what's that one?
With the
that
devil.
One EDM festival that we watch all the time.
With the devil.
DEF CON 1. Yeah, DEF CON 1. Watch that on YouTube. It's like one of the coolest EDM festivals ever. And that light show, that pyro show, it's like a year-round gig for whole bunches of people. The guys doing the lighting design, the guys doing the pyro design, the set design, everything. But it's so cool because the venue is the entertainment. You know, obviously the music is a big part of it, and there is a semblance of a live show. But I mean, the light show, the laser show, the pyro show is your entertainment.
Your screen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that whole thing is what you're producing on.
Kind of to go with that, the newer generation that I've seen go to these shows are crazy. They're like, oh my gosh, have you seen this amazing fireworks and everything? But they just don't know that they've just watched what is called the pyro musical, and they can look it up and get actually more involved. But how do we get more people involved, I guess, is where we're really going. And thanks, guys, for making my drive to work every day a blast.
Hell yeah, you're welcome.
That's
what she said.
Best day of the week, too, Friday. You go in, I'm going home for the weekend.
I think that's a challenge, man. I can tell you where I'm at with getting future generations involved as a content creator. One, to be helpful, but you really do hope deep down that in some way, shape, or form, what you're doing is inspiring people to want to try to do this stuff. I mean, I remember the first pyro musical that I saw that inspired me to do something really cool. And it was that old Atomic Pyro Monkeys. What I can't even find it anymore. It's not even on YouTube. I think they took it down, but it's Atomic Pyro Monkeys was the name of the group that did it. And they did a Skillet song. And I saw that. And the first time I saw that, I was hooked. But I think it really does require a certain creative nature to the human. You can get over the lustrous part of it, right? The part that draws you in. But then when you realize how much goes into the hobby or the profession, depending on what you want to make of it, it's a totally different story. I think it chews up and spits out a lot of people because it's a ton of work. It's a ton of time. It's a ton of money. And
I mean, you saw it on Cobra's site today. Someone asked something about if they were going to make an AI type software where you could just type it in.
Yep.
And I was thinking the same thing that Zach said. I'm like, that's not fun. That just shows me that you're AI
for
is
our
doing
kind of people, right? Yeah, but and then there's the other people where they just want to enjoy the show. They don't want to have to spend 35 hours scripting the stupid thing. They just rather go out in the field, drop their product, go back and watch this thing go off. And so I can see both sides of it. My knee jerk reaction to that post was also exactly what AJ just said, was like, why would you want to do something like that? That's just taking all the fun out of it. But I'm also
I could see it for like a small backyard, hooking some cakes up and that kind of thing. But I think someone put it the best down there. They did Sky Wars and had like the Terminator guys next to it, and it said like 2028 or whatever.
Lots of funny. I didn't see that. I'll have to go look at it.
I think, I 100% that, like, when I looked at that, like Andre said something that made a lot of sense, because I think often, it is really easy for us because we live on the creative side of this thing, and because we love to do that so much, it's hard for us to look at a use case or even surmise that a use case might exist to where that wouldn't be useful, right? But if you look at some of these smaller display companies that may not have the internal resources or the creative ability internally to do design. Now, sure, they could pay a bunch of money and go out and subcontract designers and get them to design shows, which again, that, you're opening up a whole new can of worms with the whole AI taking jobs type thing. But
but I was talking about more on just like what the question was about. It was more about like, how do you get the, people into this in your crowd? And it's like, well, that's the thing, is that people are going to look up to how to do this stuff, and there's going to be like, oh, well, there's got to be an easier way to do it. Let's check what AI has to do.
Well, I'll tell you, dude, right now. It's going to get
harder and harder, I think, to get people to get into this hobby once they figure out how much work and time and effort physically goes into it.
Yeah.
I think that's going to get harder because the younger generation, besides a few out there, is just like, I don't want to keep touching my phone. I don't want to have to do anything. So I think it is going to be harder.
Any progression in technology, I'm never going to look at that and thumb my nose at it. I want to be open to progress and how I can kind of lasso that progress to make progress. Will I ever sit down and use a computer or tell a computer to design my show for me? Hell no. That's what I love doing. Do I think that could have benefits to the commercial side of the industry that could potentially bring other people in? I mean, I've watched that shit go for years in music. The tools make things easier, but I do see an argument for, if it's too easy, what happens when that generation has to come into it? Is that going to be so much of a norm that they're not going to know how to do the simple stuff? I can see the argument in that too.
Mm-hmm. When you're bringing up the music analogy, the thought that entered my head at that time was, okay, so what about the popular artists that occasionally or all the time, whatever, use a ghostwriter to create some of their content because they need to fill, whatever their EP or their album, and they just don't have it. But they're still out there performing that song and, doing the rest of the work. It's just, it was somebody else's original idea, or it's AI's original idea. The guy in the backyard, he's still assembling the show, or even a ship show type of situation where 76 has got the music and the boxes and the product, and you just buy it, you put it together, your family enjoys it. You still got to eat your barbecue. I don't think 4th of July I've ever eaten a barbecue because I'm always out in the dang field, so I can see the case in point on the other side of it too. After I had that initial knee-jerk reaction, same as you guys did, where like, man, that's just lazy. Maybe not so much. Maybe it's just some guy that wants to, outsmart part of the system. To each his own, I suppose.
Totally, dude. I think it's the reactions that you're always going to get to it. When I see posts like that, I think I had the first thing that I thought, it wasn't even, my own reaction to the substance of what he was saying. My first thought was, oh God, this is like, grab the popcorn and just watch the comments, because I kind of knew where it's going to go. But I mean, if that doesn't get us to take a deeper look at how we see progress, then I don't know what does. Because I mean, at what point did that same argument come into play for visual scripting software? At what point did the generation that started utilizing firing systems look at the guys that traditionally only shot, like in a market where you only shot shell shows, looked at that and went, oh, I don't know, that's cheating, or, everybody's got their own bias for whatever reason that's going to be. And I think that's always going to be applied a little more prejudicely, I guess is the right word, in creative outlets, because, you know, you almost feel like a part of you is being analyzed at that point, because it's like you're taking the way you do something and trying to compare it to even the idea of fresh change. And you're like, oh man, I don't know. Look at Ignite, for example. I mean, look how complicated firing systems and scripting shows used to be, right? And systems like Ignite have taken all of the key points, the most important points of designing a fireworks show, and applied it very specifically to the backyard. And all of these tools have been created with them in mind. Firing systems with reduced cue counts, ease of use so they can use their smartphone, their integration of the Glow platform, which you see in almost all of these retailers' websites now, that allow you to script a show, right? So all of these consumers that shop at these retail outlets, they can now market this to their end customers, and they can build a show, and then they can leave the store with a show that they built online, you know? And I think things are only going to become more networked and interconnected and more efficient as new technologies come about. And I've always been a fan of progress, you know, trying to, because in pyro, you're always trying to make things easier. I mean, whether we do it at a super minuscule, like under the microscope level, you know, being neck deep in this stuff on the field and in design, and like knowing all of the really in-depth ins and outs, or whether you're trying to do that, or, you know, it all fits within the lens or the scope of your own application. You know, and then at the end of the day, it just comes down to, is it marketable or not? So I think pyro has to experience those changes and become part of some of those changes, because if they don't, then we get the problem that I think the industry's had over the last several years, is like, you know, it's always been this label of it's an archaic industry, and how do you get it to evolve and grow? And I think, you know, companies like Cobra and Ignite, they've done a great job at that. You know, Finale's done a great job of that. These guys are stellar at creating products that make sense in this day and age.
Going on the AI thing for a second, if that were to come out, that would basically be built by someone's idea of what they believe a pyromusical should look like, right? Because it has to be taught by somebody, right?
I mean, these language learning models go out and they scrape the internet for billions and billions and millions and quadrillions of people's ideas. And then it's a hodgepodge, is a sum of all of that data. So I totally believe it could probably be done. I just don't think in where we are now, I don't think enough exists with, at least data does not exist in the repositories from like Finale 3D, you know, any of the other scripting softwares, or Cobra in a database for these language learning models to get a hold of and do something like that. I think it would have to be developed by someone within the industry to make it work. Because you're right, it has to learn. It has to know what to base all of this on. It has to educate itself as to what a pyromusical is. Okay, because if you ask ChatGPT, for example, what is a pyromusical, it'll tell you. It knows, because there's plenty of news articles and other things available for it to do that. If you tell it to script one, different story. Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
I just went and did it just to see what it would do.
Yeah. What did it spit out?
So I put in script a pyromusical, and it says, here's an example of a script for a basic pyromusical where we describe the key moments of the show. And it basically just gives me like timestamps of what you would do in certain areas. So opening sequence, it actually is really organized. But It starts out with opening sequence, music, opening fanfare, epic orchestral piece with brass and percussion. Timestamp 0.00. Music begins with a strong brass fanfare. Fireworks. large golden peonies and comets burst in the sky, spreading outward in sync with the fanfare. And it just kind of goes on like that with, timestamps at 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45. Yeah. So, and then it transitions to a romantic theme at 1:30. We have a climactic build at 2 minutes 30. Grand finale at 3 minutes. I just put in script to Pyro Musical.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
6.5 minutes in, Stairway to Heaven.
Thunderstruck. No.
That's it. I'm leaving.
And we're going to bring it home with Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Trust us. They're going to love this. We went deep down the rabbit hole in regards to, how we're going to hook the next generation, get them into Pyro in the future. And I think technology has a lot to do with that. But how do we inspire people now?
Well, being more visible. I just really feel like it's such a shrouded hobby that, you wouldn't even know it's there until you start turning over rocks. And that's how I felt getting into it. Also, was I didn't know where to start. I started doing some Google searches, finding random old message boards. I think Facebook is good and bad in regards of you get on one of those groups and there's a lot of hostility in there, but there's also a lot of valuable information. Yeah. However, that hostility does have a tendency to chase people away, and there's just really no reason for it. When you were talking about how, Ignite and Cobra and, some of the other major players in the Pyro space do a really good job at, attracting people, I wanted to interject there that it's, a lot of it's their marketing and, the industry as a whole does a real crap job of marketing and being visible, having that exposure, so I think there's a lot of people out there that would have the interest, but they have no idea where to even look.
And I think it's going to have to come down to like something we always say. It's harder to find them to do these kind of shows too, especially, or really any fireworks show, because but these are more labor intensive. It's, like you said, you find yourself, do you like fireworks or do you love fireworks? Or are they just like, once a year is good enough for me?
Yeah.
You got to find the people that are like, I'm willing to put in the time and effort and struggle.
If they've ever been around somebody that shoots the backyard consumer fireworks shows, because I think you get you'll see interest in that. You'll see families, you'll see friends, you'll see neighbors pop over, and then they look at everything and they go, wow, you kind of see that wonder, that twinkle in their eye that they might think that this is cool. But out of the 15 or 20 people that came over and showed that kind of interest and said, hey, this is crazy. I almost wonder what the statistic is. If you rolled all those people up into one gigantic arena, if you could pie chart it and say, what's the percentage of those people actually going out and pursuing how to do it and get interested in it? I think it's low, but
something to do at COBRA-CON.
That's right. There you go. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. JP, thank you for letting absolutely nothing stop you tonight. This was great, dude. I had a lot of fun.
I did too. Hey, whose voice is that on the little intro outros that you do?
It's me.
That's you. Okay. That's what I thought.
He just talks like this when he does it. I can't do the voice. I'm just
Wow. I thought my fry scream sounded way better than that. I guess I need to go back to fry scream school. Thank you, dude. We wish you the best of luck at COBRA-CON, man.
Yeah, looking forward to meeting up with you guys out there.
Hell yeah, it's going to be really good. I'll have I will buy all three of you the beverage of your choosing.
Outstanding.
Ooh, maybe we'll just have one ready for you after you fire the show.
Yeah, right.
Once you're done, we'll hand it to you.
Afterwards.
And then you guys are helping clean up, right?
No.
No, we're just going to judge you, and then we're going to leave.
We're gonna leave.
We'll be at the bar.
You guys need any help? I'll just be over here.
It was a great show, man. I'll be over at the hot dog trailer.
The hot dog trailer.
The hot dog trailer. Yeah, you know the hot dog. They had a couple of years ago. They had a DMX controller hooked up. Actually, it wasn't even a DMX controller. It was they had the 18R2, and then on top of, I think, one of the concession trailers, they had a bunch of those Galaxis flame machines, and then they would just they play a song and then just let people just pound away on the 18R2 and create their own little flame sequences and stuff. It was actually pretty cool.
That.
You remember that? Yeah, it was fun. Okay.
Just blowing through propane.
Yeah. I would have hated to have been the guy because you know that at one point Scott probably looked at him. He's like, all right, well, that one's not firing anymore. Can we get someone up there to change that?
It doesn't look as cool.
It doesn't look as good. We need to get some more sauce in there. All right, go check out the merch shop. You will never be more pleasing to look at. You're going to love the way that you look. AJ guarantees it.
Yeah.
That's right. Bozy8823.com/Rhythm Pyro. Go check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Rhythm Pyro. And stop talking about it.
Stop talking about it.
Stop talking about it.